Hello everyone, how's it going? I'm WoWcrendor and welcome back to another episode of Fishing with Crendor. And today we are going back a little bit for some classic WoW fun because we're bringing on Tips.
What's up, y'all? It's
What
me.
up?
It's your boy. Wait, wrong intro. Wait, it's
Oh,
it's hey, what's up, guys? It's Tips. I'm sorry, just the lack of Asmongold has been killing me.
no. Yeah. So Tips, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do for anybody that doesn't actually know who you are, what you do, and all that stuff.
All right, I'll give him a best shot. What's up, guys? My name's Tips. I'm from the YouTube channel and Twitch stream tipsoutbaby, and I make classic WoW stuff. Classic WoW stuff like videos and stupid posts and stuff like that. Things that usually involve classic WoW. I do stuff like that. But yeah, mostly YouTube videos and streaming.
So I'm kind of curious, how would you come up with the name Tips Out Baby?
Well, it's kind of a long story, and I get that question all the time.
Well, we got time.
We got time. All right. Well, once upon a time, there was a very graceful and beautiful gorilla named Harambe. And unfortunately, he was taken from us before his time, I believe.
Agreed.
And as a result of this egregious crime, many young men around the world decided to don their genitalia in his honor. and and you know, I couldn't stand idle and watch that happen, so I decided to join in. And Tips was a nickname that I kind of had on the internet for a while, and it kind of went hand in hand with Harambe and stuff like that. So Tips became Tips Out, and Tips Out just kind of became my thing for a while, and that's what I started my channel around.
Huh. That's interesting. It's like it's always weird hearing how people get their names. Like everyone always with me, there's like Crendor. What's that? It's like it's literally just my WoW name I randomized. It's like it's not that interesting. But so let's start with how you got into just video games. How old were you when you like played your first Nintendo or anything like that?
Oh man, we're going way back now. It's so hard to remember when it all started, when the addiction started. I vividly remember like the first major gaming moment I had was I was around 5 years old, I think. And at the time, a close friend of my dad's had bought a Nintendo 64 for our family. And I remember unboxing it and just being so excited. And I remember my dad like spending hours trying to figure out how to plug in the yellow, white, and red like auxiliary cable things.
Mm-hmm.
And first game I ever owned on that console was Mario 64. It came with the console itself. So that's when it all started. And PC gaming for me started. It's tough to pinpoint it. I want to say like Warcraft 2 days, just going to my friend's house and playing Warcraft 2. But the first game like I vividly remember really gaming on PC was RuneScape Classic back in 2001.
Good old RuneScape.
Good old RuneScape. Like the 2D paper sprite RuneScape, like the OG RuneScape before yeah, it was embarrassing, but that's what we used to do back in the day.
So like, were you one of those people where like you played a lot on your friend's stuff, like computer? Because I know you said going to your friends' houses and playing on the computer. Like, when did you actually get a computer? Because back then it was like not even everybody had a computer.
Exactly, and my parents in particular were very, they were very aware of video games and the addiction that I had been suffering at the time. So they did their best to like minimize my time on the computer. So a lot of times it was actually going to my grandparents' house. My cousin lived with my grandparents, and so every day after school, we'd go visit my grandparents, and they'd have a computer, and that's pretty much where most of the gaming would take place. And then every once in a while, when someone got invited over, my parents played the cool parents, and they decided to let us play on the PC. But for the most part, it was at other people's houses until middle school, basically.
So let's talk about how you got into WoW then, because that's really your main thing. So how did you get into classic WoW? And did you think it was going to be as big of a deal when you played it as it turned out to be?
So with WoW, after I'd played RuneScape for a couple of years, I feel like everyone that's played an MMO has had the thought of, okay, this is a great game, this is a great MMO, but imagine 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the MMOs that are going to be made, right? We've all had that like thought to some capacity.
Hmm.
For me, it started in RuneScape. I was like, this is a fun game, but imagine like a 3D version of this. Where like, you actually can like see this big world and stuff like that. And that's kind of, that kind of transitioned over into Warcraft 3 when that came out. And when I was playing Warcraft 3, I was like, man, wouldn't it be great if this game combined with RuneScape and we had like a Warcraft RuneScape sort of thing? And little did I know, just a couple months later, I think it was like a World of Warcraft advertisement came up on the BNet launcher in Warcraft 3. And that's when I found out about WoW. It was the summer of 2004, about 5 or 6 months before the game came out. That's when I found out about it. And my parents would not let me get a copy until the summer of that year of 2005. But all of my friends knew it was coming out. A lot of them purchased copies. And one of my best friends at the time, Justin, his brother didn't want to play it. He didn't like it. So I ended up playing on his brother's account for like 6 months before the summer until I got my own.
Were you, how old were you at this point? Like in high school?
Yeah, in high school. I was around 15 when WoW came out, something like that.
Yeah, that's about how old I was. I think I might have been 14 because I remember I was like freshman year. So to me, it was like, that was like I had nothing to do. I think I was playing Halo 2 at the time. And then all my friends started playing WoW, and it was like, oh my God, this game is amazing.
Yeah, it was mind-boggling. Like I remember all I did the first day I played, made an undead warlock sitting next to Justin on his brother's computer. And all I did was just run around Tirisfal Glades killing things, like spamming Shadow Bolt over and over again for hours. Didn't do a single quest, didn't know what quests were. Because the quests in RuneScape were so different. Like they weren't really for experience at the time. They were more for like certain rewards and being able to use certain items and stuff.
Mm.
So I just spammed Shadow Bolt all day, every day, and I was like, this is the greatest game ever made right here.
It's actually interesting how many people didn't play the game like quote correctly back then because there weren't any guides, there wasn't anyone holding your hand. It was just kind of a brand new game and nobody'd really experienced anything like this before. Because all the other MMORPGs were, like you said with RuneScape or EverQuest or all that, they're a little more complex or there weren't any things like quests that were there. So it's just, it was like a whole new territory.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the Wild West, man. It was the days of cheatplanet.com and no like Thoughtbot and just no direction or relatively little direction. And it was amazing because you could play the game how you wanted to play it. Like a lot of people know this, but I played vanilla for 2 years when it came out and I only got to level 51 because I never felt compelled to level. I was doing worse on Gulch all day. I came from a very like intensive PKing game, so I was just doing PvP. You played the game how you wanted to play it, and there was no rush, there was no rhyme or reason for it, and it was just a good time, man. It was a great time.
Yeah, I think that's another reason so many people are looking forward to classic WoWs because of its slower pace. Like even when you played the classic WoW demo at BlizzCon, you could just feel that slow pace and how you had to take a little more time. It wasn't like the modern version of WoW where it feels kind of like arcadey almost or hack and slashy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like an action MMO now. It's almost like a different genre. Like if you were to reskin either modern WoW or classic WoW into a completely different IP and compare the games side by side, I'm not even sure we'd consider them to be in the same genre at this point. They play so differently. And unfortunately, people don't make games like classic WoW anymore and haven't for quite some time. So it's really exciting to see Blizzard kind of embracing their past and delivering this game that we've wanted for so long.
So you played classic WoW for 2 years, but then you didn't hit 60. So like, was there any like part of you where you're like, maybe I should hit 60, or did you think like, oh, maybe the PvP will get better when I hit max level, or you didn't care? It was just, I'm gonna play the way I want to play.
At the time, it was I'm gonna play the way I want to play. I had a bunch of alts in the 40s and like all the different classes for the most part, and just for me again, like coming from the RuneScape culture at the time, back in the early days of RuneScape, and I'm pretty sure today OSRS has kind of preserved that sense of you don't really need to get to the max level. You kind of pick a certain leveling point, a certain bracket, and that's where you PK. And it's basically a different meta with every bracket, so you can play the game in a variety of different ways. And that's how I approached WoW. At the time, for me, it was I'm a RuneScape player. I don't really care about the ratings so much. I just want to PK at fun, interesting brackets, and beyond that, I don't really care to level. And that was pretty much my mindset at the time. But after I stopped playing, and I did quit about 2 or 3 months before Burning Crusade came out because of college applications and stuff like that. I didn't come back to WoW until about 2 or 3 months before Wrath. So I missed a big portion of TBC. And it was when Wrath hit that I, got max level, started raiding, and realized the game was changing. And this wasn't the same game that I remember playing. The finish line was brought way too far forward. And that's when I started to miss vanilla. It was towards the end of Wrath where I was like, something's not quite right here. The game did not used to be like this.
So did you start seeking out like private servers at that point?
Yep, that was my first stint on private servers. It was, you remember Rift?
I do remember Rift, yes.
so remember like the big Rift like hype wave that like came out of nowhere. The Rift beta had like come out, and then like Cataclysm was coming out, but people were kind of getting sick of WoW towards the end of Wrath and that whole thing. Yeah. So it was around that time where I started exploring. I played Rift beta for a bit, and it was okay, but again, it didn't scratch that same itch, that itch that had been scratching me, ever since I started playing Wrath. And I went back and I just looked up online. I was like, vanilla WoW, is there anything I can play? Like, is there any form of is the game available anywhere? And I stumbled upon a private server called the Emerald Dream, which I believe was hosted by Phoenix at the time. I think Phoenix shut down a few months ago, but they might be back up now. I'm not sure. But this was, relatively speaking, it was not like the private servers of today. Phoenix was unfortunately very underpopulated. I remember when I would log in, maybe 120 people on, at a time. And the experience was instant 60 if you wanted. So you would automatically get to level 60. They'd give you starter gear. And it just didn't feel like an authentic vanilla experience. I played that for a bit, quit, came back here and there for random private servers, came and quit. But it wasn't really until Nostalria's in early 2015 where I truly felt like this was vanilla. Like, that's when the feeling was brought back. I'd played private servers for years before, but it was NOS that really captured that same feeling of, oh my God, you're this random adventurer in this world and there's thousands of other people around you and you're just trying to make a name for yourself. So shout out to NOS, man. I can't believe this all happened, but it's just been great. It's been great.
What did you realize when you started playing that again? Like, did you have any kind of like an epiphany almost of like, wow, this is what made me enjoy classic WoW so much when you were playing the private server again?
I did. So leveled up a human warrior. I was in Elwyn Forest, just finished Northshire Abbey, so I'm like around level 5, level 6, something like that. And I start making my way to Goldshire. And, going in, playing vanilla again, seeing all these people, I'm like, this is the vanilla I kind of remember. And then all of a sudden, I just, out of nowhere, in the middle of Goldshire, I die. And I look up, and it's a freaking infernal. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? There's just a huge skull infernal in Goldshire. Some warlock basically enslaved the demon and let it go free in Goldshire, which people used to do back in the day. And I just started like audibly laughing. Like, I was laughing my butt off. And I was just like, this is vanilla WoW. This is it. This is the game, you know.
Mhm.
And that was it. That brought me back, and I played on Nost all the way. Um, I quit probably around 6 months before the shutdown. So I played a pretty good time on Nost, but not all the way through to the end of Nost. And then I heard about the shutdown, and for me, that's when I internally, I guess, I kind of became like a classic advocate in terms of like I was very much following the scene and tried to stay as updated as possible, and posted on forums whenever I could. Hey Blizzard, bring this back. I signed all the petitions. I did whatever I could at the time, but I had not started my YouTube channel just yet.
Um, that's like so crazy how when you think about it, it's like imagine if private servers, even though it's like they're not actually quote legal, if like they hadn't existed or they hadn't come around, like we probably wouldn't be having this classic WoW discussion. Like they probably wouldn't even be bringing it back.
Absolutely, and it's insane to think about it. But you know what's crazier? Honestly, I was thinking about this the other day. The thing I think we have to be most thankful for is not necessarily private servers. It's the one and only Warlords of Draenor. Because the Stalrius launched right at the time when people were starting to get sick of WoD. And its popularity, I think, was largely in part due to WoD being the expansion that it was. And, I have a theory that if WoD was just, maybe 20 or 30% better, we may not have ever gotten legacy servers. So thank you, Warlords of Draenor, for being the giant hunk of crap that you were, because it was due to your boringness that got people to play on Nost and ultimately led to everything that happened since.
It is interesting how like a lot of people that haven't played classic WoW or they haven't played in a really long time played the demo, and a lot of people just really enjoyed the style of gameplay that it provides compared to the modern game. So I'm curious as to like when classic WoW does launch, do you think there's going to be people that play it for a bit and then quit, or that most people play all the way to 60 and then quit, or what do you think the majority of people are going to do?
So it's a really interesting conversation, and it's a conversation I'm sure we'll be having all the way through until launch and even a few months after. Me personally, I look at classic WoW not so much from the nostalgia standpoint. I have nostalgia for the original game, but it's actually just the game design itself that I've always been attracted to, and I think a lot of other people have been attracted to. The way I perceive classic WoW is a lot like chess. Chess is a very old game. It's been around for hundreds of years, I think. Yet, you, me, a lot of other people around the world still play it, and it kind of has this timeless, appeal. I personally feel that same way about classic WoW. I feel like there's something about it. There's something about the sense of progression that you feel as you're playing the game. There's something about the social elements, obviously, that keeps you coming back. There's just something about this game that's fun and appealing on such a fundamental psychology level that I do think people are going to love it. And I think it's going to come, and I think it's going to stay once it's here. But at the same time, the counter argument is you look at this generation of gamers seem to be very occupied with fast paced, first person looter shooters, battle royales, mobile games, stuff like that. It's hard to say how that generation will embrace the game, whether or not they will. But I think in terms of just objective game design, I think classic WoW has it. And I think as a result, it will be around for more than just a couple of months. Will it lose population after the start? Yeah, probably. There's going to be millions of players flooding in, following their favorite streamers, trying to play with them. But I think long term, it's going to be one of those things where, kind of like OSRS and some of the older games of the past, it's just going to have that long term appeal.
Yeah, I'm interested too, like you said, with the streamers playing it, because, back then, obviously, like, you didn't even have YouTube, really. It was like just you played the game and you had like a few websites and that was it. So to have like all these, like a lot of streamers playing it, and you're going to have guilds forming, and you're going to have like, big PvP things or people getting ganked on streams, and like battlegrounds being like, stream versus stream battlegrounds and things like that. It's like it's gonna add a whole new element to it, but part of me is like, is that going to kind of ruin the experience, or is it going to enhance the experience, or how long will it last? Because obviously it's a lot of things like that are just flavor of the month type of things, then everything moves on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned the streamer thing. Is it going to help or is it going to hurt? Man, I have no idea. I have no idea. It's like the game itself, let's say Blizzard, delivers a no changes product and it's the same game it was back in the day. The truth is the times have changed. Back in the day, you had Ventrilo and stuff like that, but you didn't have Discord channels. You didn't have the level of like just communication and networking that you have today. And obviously you didn't have Twitch. I have no idea, man. Like I think, part of me thinks the streamer influence is going to help and it's going to, make for some awesome events and stuff like that, especially if you play on a server with streamers that are on both sides. If you have a streamer on Alliance and a streamer on Horde, it's going to make things a lot more interesting. But who knows, dude? I'm kind of scared. What if it just turns into a complete I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I might just I don't know. Part of me wants to play on a PvE server, so it's just, you don't have to deal with a lot of just ganking and everything. But then part of me really enjoys that whole aspect to it, like being in Stranglethorn and getting ganked. But it's like, will I enjoy it for 5 minutes and then get frustrated? It's like, all right, maybe I want to play on a PvE server.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one thing that, unfortunately, I feel is going to be a pretty big boon to streamers. Wait, boon is a bad thing, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it's going to be a bad thing to streamers. So I'm not sure if I should say this, but I may or may not be indulging my vanilla itch right now.
Right.
Actually, literally right now, but in general, like right now.
Yeah.
So on this server, my character's name is Tips Out, and a lot of people know that I play. So I do get a pretty fair share of ganking, and it can be pretty frustrating at times. But as somebody that's kind of played these server launches, time after time, if you get ahead of the curve, you'll be just fine as a streamer. But if you fall behind, oh yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, I certainly don't envy the people that are going to be taking their time leveling on PvP servers, because that's definitely something I can't recommend.
Yeah, I think what I've planned on doing is I'm going to have a PvE character where I'm kind of just going to level, and that's the one I'm going to mainly stream on, to kind of just nostalgia out and be like, oh, I remember doing this, or wow, I remember that. And then I'm going to have my PvP character, which will probably be with my friends that are all going to be playing it and leveling up. And that's kind of just my, whatever happens, happens type of character. I think that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Would definitely recommend playing the PvP stuff off stream, for sure.
And it's, I don't know if I'd want to name my character to a thing where people can tell it's me or something. I'm not going to name my guy Crendor. So
it's definitely putting a target on your back. So the way we've kind of, and by we I mean me, S-Fan, and Stay Safe on the Classcast. Shout out to the Classcast, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we've kind of, this was about a year ago when we first met each other and started making the podcast. We decided at the time that in order to hopefully minimize some of the griefing, but at the same time, give us the perks of playing on a PvP server, we were all going to roll on the same server. I would go Horde, they would go Alliance, and we would kind of have some sort of control over the degree to which we got ganked and stuff like that. So it was kind of like we're creating a mafia on both sides. And since then, that mafia has turned into a full-blown kind of war with a lot of streamers getting involved. Guys like Payo and Crom and some of the classic community streamers, and people having streamers on both sides. And so what I feel like this has done is it's given us a way for us to enjoy the PvP content, to build up rivalries between us and between our communities, but at the same time, hopefully have enough, map presence to where if somebody's getting griefed out of control, maybe we can, we can push the buttons to where that doesn't happen so often. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So one thing I wanted to bring up, because we're fishing in Tanaris, is why Tanaris is your favorite zone, or if you have any like nostalgic memory there.
So I joke around with Esvan about this because we both have Middle Eastern backgrounds. So I'm like, it reminds me of home, it reminds me of
Yeah.
but something about it, like especially in Classic, with the sandstorms, and I feel like the zones that I'm typically more attracted to are kind of just the wide open, just wide open zones like Tanaris, Mulgore, the ones that are just, the world is kind of laid out in front of you. Kind of the opposite to like Val Shara and Legion, the like really congested forest stuff. Like that stuff is not too interesting to me. These just kind of, it's like almost like they're open physically, but like figuratively, it makes you feel like you're just this adventure in this wide open world. And I remember getting that sense with Tanaris very strongly back in the day. It's like this giant desert. And, back in 2004, 2005, your PC settings were cranked to like all the way down. And, you could only see so far in front of you. And you had the great sandstorms there. So it really felt like you were getting lost in this, giant laid out desert. And that, I don't know, something about that was very captivating. And it still is to me.
Yeah, I have the same thing with Mulgore, because I like very green zones like Feralis and all those type like hinterlands. And so Mulgore was always one of my favorites because it's that same type of thing. It's a very open, yet it's a very open zone. Yet when you walk around it, it's like you're on an adventure and you're like this small character exploring this big world, and you're like, wow, I'm like in the open plains, and you see Thunder Bluff off in the distance, like up on the totem pole type structure, and it's just, I don't know, I always really enjoyed that, even though it's kind of a boring zone, to quest in.
Yeah. But it gets you, like it captures you somehow. And I've always believed with zones, and zone design, it's almost like less is more to a certain extent. I feel like one thing that Blizzard has done over the years, their art department is phenomenal, and all the WoW zones from like a purely aesthetic standpoint are always superb. But from a layout standpoint, it seems like there's just so much now, and you can't really appreciate the beauty or the vastness of the environment because you can really only see 30 yards in front of you before there's a curve or a turn or, some new quest area that you have to go to and stuff like that. It feels more like the game is a series of quest hubs with a zone designed around it, rather than a living, breathing world with quest hubs placed within it. And
that's a really good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, it's shout out to John Stats for kind of giving me that metaphor. He was one of the original zone designers back in vanilla. And
I actually did a fishing with him.
There you go. So,
yeah, he was a really cool guy. It was interesting just learning like his thought process behind, creating one of the most popular games ever.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy's a genius, man. I don't know how he did it, and I'm very happy that his diary is doing really well. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah, even thinking of that, it does, when you play the modern version of WoW, it does feel very linear. It's like you start here, and then your quest progresses here, and then there's a few like scraggle quests here and there too, where it's like, hey, this witch lady up in the mountains needs some help. And I think those feel more like the old WoW quests, and they're more just kind of side quests now sprinkled in instead of the main quests that you have to do that are, just in the zone in sporadic places. And I do think that kind of hinders the adventure part of questing.
Exactly. Like quests, I mean, just the term itself, right? Quest. There's a certain level of like mystery and intrigue surrounding it. And like nowadays it feels like you can complete every single quest in an expansion. They're kind of all just laid out there for you to find, and it's all pretty much on rails. There's a YouTuber by the name of Frostadamus who released a video not too long ago, and I recommend everyone check it out. It's called like 3 secret quests in Vanilla WoW. And I've been playing Vanilla WoW private servers for a long time. I played original Vanilla, and I did not know of these two quests. Like that's the level of like that's how incredible. I mean, just how hidden quests were and how they were. It was almost an achievement just to find them, you know.
Hmm.
And it's just that design, that kind of old school design where, the content itself, shouldn't be taken for granted. That's just something that I miss so much.
Um, so I'm kind of curious too. What is your favorite vanilla WoW class? Because I know you said you played a warrior, but like if you had to play one class, or even like what class you're gonna play when Classic WoW launches, like is that your favorite class, or you just what was your favorite vanilla class?
It's got to be warrior. Honestly, it's got to be warrior. Like I've been playing this class since 2006. I actually mained my level 51 that we talked about earlier. That was actually an undead warlock. So I mained that for the vast majority of vanilla. But in the summer of 2006 or something like that, around that time, I watched the movie Gladiator, and just being the freaking repulsive nerd that I was, I made a character named Maximus. It was a human warrior, and just fell in love with the class. The mechanics in vanilla, the warrior mechanics, are so unique. The stance dancing, the rage management, the swing times, all that stuff. Unfortunately, all that stuff is no longer in the game, and I love the way the class plays. I love the theme behind it. The machismo, zug zug mentality.
Hmm.
So yeah, I love warriors, man. I've tried playing other classes. I played a blood DK in early Cataclysm. Messed around with the shaman in Wrath of the Lich King at some point, but at the end of the day, heart of the warrior, man. I love the class.
Yeah, it's crazy too to think how much the classes have changed. Like I mainly played a hunter and a priest in vanilla WoW, and I did have a warrior, but I didn't really do much raiding on him. I mainly PvP. But it's one of the, and in fact, the warrior I have today is that same warrior that I just boosted to max level because I had the free boost, and I was like, oh, I'll play a warrior again. But it's definitely one of those things where you look back after like at the talent trees and everything like that, and you're like, wow, this has changed so much. Like even the old talent trees. I think that's one of my favorite things about old WoW was every time you leveled up, you got a talent point, and you could put that talent point into the talent tree, and it was like, I got something. Even if it was like 1% crit, you still felt like, hey, I just got a little more powerful. And now when you level up, it's like, well, I guess I got a talent point coming up in 10 more levels. It's like it doesn't feel as satisfying.
Exactly. You hit the nail right on the head. The progression curve in vanilla is just so incredible, and like you said, every level you get something. You know, even if you don't, you get a talent. You get a talent point. Even if you don't get abilities, you get a talent point. You get 5 defense skill. You get to upgrade your weapon skills at certain level milestones, like level 10, level 20, 30, etc. You unlock a new class quest. At level 40, you unlock your mount, and on top of that, some classes get a new suit of armor: hunter, shaman, warrior, paladin. You go from male to plate, or from leather to mail, and it's all of these small incremental gains that I think really appeal to us, like as people, as humans, on a very fundamental psychological level, that keep you playing the game and keep you invested in your character. And I think what's happened here is, over the years with all the pruning and expanding the game and the level expansion and stuff like that, Blizzard has kind of almost abandoned that idea of small incremental gains. And like you said, you go 10, 15, you go 15 levels now, I think, without getting a talent point. And to be honest, I mean, the talent system today, they're not even really talents. It's just like getting another ability,
Yeah.
So it's like you don't really feel that progressive growth, and you don't get tied to your character as easily. And it's a very delicate formula. The time it takes for you to get the growth, and then you get it, and then you grind out for the next one. But vanilla got it right, man. And again, I personally believe it's a human psychology thing, and I can't begin to understand it, but vanilla just does it so well.
I'm kind of curious about the the making money aspects. I know a lot of people are always like, oh, it's so hard to make gold in vanilla WoW. And I agree with it because back when I played, I took till, you could get your mount at 40 and I didn't get it till 43 or 44 because I didn't have enough money. And so I'm kind of curious as somebody who has played and still plays vanilla WoW, is that actually true, or are there better ways to make money? Was I just like a dumb 14-year-old back then? Like, I'm just kind of curious.
Well, it definitely wasn't because you were dumb or 14 or anything like that. Naturally, when a game is around for so long, you start to find out more about it. And the best example is in games like speedrun games and stuff like that. If you watch any of, like Ocarina of Time speedruns or Mario 64 speedruns, you'll find that people know a lot more about the game now than they did back then, and they know all the shortcuts and the nooks and the crannies and all that stuff. Same goes for vanilla. We've had close to 15 years of theory crafting on the game. We know a lot more now than we did, and we found some of the exploits here and there. So without giving away too many details, I'll tell you them off stream, Crendor, off the video, so you can get ready. But there are ways to make 160 gold an hour plus in vanilla very easily. And back in the day, making 30 or 40 gold an hour was considered insane. To tell someone they can make 160 gold an hour is nuts. I know people that have made 300 gold an hour with certain methods, and for the top end guilds, the guys that really push hard and try to secure the resources out in the world first, you're going to be making a lot of money. A lot of money.
Do you think that's going to kind of impact the way everything works, like the auction house and the economy, because people know so much now?
Yes, unfortunately it is. And the way we've seen it on private servers, unfortunately, is not a very accurate indicator of how it's going to be on Classic. Because typically with private servers, just, by the nature of being this kind of relatively under the radar thing where you have to go out of your way and download it and stuff like that, the people that play private servers are typically a lot more experienced. So the average private server guild is going to be a lot better and a lot more experienced than the average guild in Classic, which is likely going to be composed of, the players that play Warcraft today. So in Classic, what I see things happening in extremes. You're going to have new players that unfortunately don't have the 10 plus years of vanilla that are going to get kind of screwed in terms of, not being able to afford, flasks on the auction house. Because on the other side of the spectrum, the top guilds that have been playing the game for years now are going to absolutely dominate every single node, every single Black Lotus, all the Devil Sword, etc. And it's going to create a very polarized dynamic. That's my theory. Hopefully it doesn't happen that way, but that's what it looks like it might turn out to be in the end. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think that that definitely can turn into an issue. But I guess for me, I'm not too worried because I don't really plan on raiding. I mainly plan on doing PvP and leveling to 60 to relive all my nostalgia. And then, occasionally like hopping on when I get bored or something to play. But, obviously everybody's not me. Those are my personal goals because I'm just like, hey, I want to, I want to re-level through Stranglethorn and try to find the aged gorilla sinew again and take like 10 hours to actually get it.
Yeah, that freaking quest, dude. Oh my god. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and I think that's going to be the vanilla experience for a lot of people, and I think all of those people are going to be no one's going to be disappointed, I should say. I mean, all of that will come back, and it'll come back in force, and just because there's a few private server guilds out there on certain servers that might make things a little bit more difficult for some casual guilds, I think overall the experience is going to be just very positive.
Yeah, and like maybe just the sheer amount of people will help change that. So it's like, there might be people farming a bunch of gold, but then, the amount of people playing the game might impact it as well. Like, we just don't know until it actually happens. Like, you can always make estimates, but I'm kind of curious with questing how many, or not how many, but like what quests are your favorite vanilla WoW quests, or which quests are like your least favorite vanilla WoW quests? Like, would it be that aged gorilla Sanu quest, or like, are there any others like those that come to your mind?
So my brothers on the Horde are gonna get a little upset with me here. I've always loved the Alliance questing zones. Duskwood, in terms of questing, I think is the best questing zone in the game. Period. It's quests like the Legend of Stalvon, Bride of the Embalmer. These are just like long quest chains that take you all over the world in many cases. And at first you think it's just a small delivery quest, and it turns into like a six continent or a six zone, cross continental adventure. Those are the quests that I love the most, and there's a lot of them on the Alliance side. The Missing Diplomat is another really good quest chain I like, but yeah, I mean, just the big grand scale adventure quests. I've always been a big fan of stuff like that.
What about your least favorite quests?
I've got to say escort quests in vanilla. I'm actually working on a video right now called the 7 things I don't like about vanilla, because a lot of people accuse me of being kind of a blind vanilla fanboy, covering up its flaws and stuff like that. It certainly wasn't a perfect game. It's my favorite game ever, but it wasn't a perfect game. And I think one of the biggest flaws was how the escort quests work. Unfortunately, just by the nature of the quests, they're very did you ever do like the robot chicken escorts back in the day?
That I did. Yep.
There you go. So those quests, because they're not phased. First of all, they're not phased. There's only one robot chicken in Tanaris at a time. That's it. So if you're not there to pick up the quest, if somebody else got it, you gotta wait, man. You gotta wait till it's done. And because they take very long to come up, and because the rewards aren't really that worthwhile for a lot of them, and because you can get killed while doing them and have to restart them, those quests for me, unfortunately, I'm just not a big fan of them. I end up skipping them pretty much through every playthrough.
Yeah, that's another thing I forgot all about, which is that's another reason I can't wait to just level through it all again, because it's one of those things where I know for a fact when I start playing through certain things, like I'm just gonna have so many memories flooding back of like, oh my god, I remember this, and oh my god, I remember that thing, and I'm like, oh my god, I remember being here when I did this, and I can't wait for that nostalgia trip.
Yeah, it's gonna be insane, man. Like the first time you hear that Crossroads music, or that Elwyn Forest music, or the Mulgore music, or whatever, it hits you, and it hits you hard. Yeah, it's just very exciting.
I noticed even in the demo, when I played like a hunter, or when I used like a bow on my rogue, whenever I used a bow, that like bow sound that just sounds different from the modern game, I was like, whoa, that like sent me some flashbacks.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like even the smallest things can just. I mean, nostalgia is very powerful, and especially how like sound effects and music go hand in hand with it. It's insane. And it's funny. I'm gonna sound like the blabbering vanilla fanboy that I just said I wasn't, but I'm just gonna do it anyways. We were talking about the zones earlier, and just kind of the minimalistic yet kind of open style of the zones in vanilla. I feel the same way about the music. I feel like some of the retail music today is amazing. Like the Anduin theme from Legion, and even Borealis right now has a great theme. But just to get that minimalistic. It was almost like it wasn't really a song for the most part, but just these sounds, these audible sounds, and like the Barons and Mulgore and Stranglethorn Vale, like just something about that style again makes you feel like you're actually in a world and not so much in a simulated, a game. And yeah.
I definitely agree with that, because I love all the old WoW music. That's like one of my favorite things about WoW. Or the old WoW as well. It's like whenever all the music comes out now, it feels very, overproduced, I guess is a good word. And then you go back to that very simplistic, like doom doom doom, and it's like, oh, it makes you feel like you're in the jungle, but it's not, it's not quote like a song. But I think that's one of the best things about it.
Absolutely, and I love the term you use, overproduced. I couldn't describe it any better. Absolutely.
I'm kind of curious what your opinion is now on just Blizzard in general, with all the current things going on, and Bobby Kotick, and the recent BlizzCon where it was like, you all have phones, right? And just the lack of really major announcements outside of like, hey, we're bringing back these old games people like revamp. But like that's kind of it.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely. This was my first BlizzCon this year. I'd never gone before, and part of it was just me trying to be at the forefront of reporting the classic news. So I was kind of just very stressed out. But looking back on it, in terms of the reveals, it was definitely pretty underwhelming. Aside from the classic release date and stuff like that, obviously, and Warcraft 3 Reforged, which is awesome too.
Yeah,
But yeah, but I don't want to be unfair to Blizzard and just start bashing. I think that it's more of an industry wide thing. What's going on right now? A lot of companies, Blizzard, EA, Bethesda, you name them, they're all kind of, I guess, recognizing that the dollars are in mobile, the dollars are in cash shops, the dollars are in games as a service, and not so much as quality games. And I feel like the entire industry has shifted in the direction of just marketing and over marketing these shells of games only to just monetize them and just squeeze every penny out of them before moving on to their next pump and dump game. And,
yeah.
I think Blizzard, unfortunately, to a certain extent, has kind of been a victim of this too. And it has translated into their games. And I feel like a lot of their games now, I mean, like retail WoW, I don't play it. Hearthstone, I don't play it. Overwatch, I don't play it. And you're kind of hearing very similar complaints across all these communities. Just their games are losing something. And it's kind of sad, especially when you look at Blizzard. It was a staple of my childhood, staple of your childhood. A lot of us out there, the Warcraft games, StarCraft, Diablo, to see it kind of, declining, for lack of a better term, is pretty sad. But that was always my hope for Classic. My hope for Classic isn't so much for Classic to come back. That's amazing. It's incredible, of course, and I'm a big fan of the game. But my biggest hope for Classic is that it sparks some kind of renaissance, whether at Blizzard or, kind of pie in the sky dreams here, but throughout the whole industry. That, what? People like these style of games, these kind of more old school MMOs with, some more traditional RPG elements and kind of slower delayed gratification. That's what people want. They don't want the cash shops and stuff. Or maybe they do, but that's a different market. But maybe we should get back to kind of catering to this kind of more old school market. That's what I hope Classic does for the industry. And, I hope 5 years from now, we're sitting on this podcast together and we're talking about the next, great Classic-like game that's coming out. That's really my hopes for Classic as a whole.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's okay to do monetizing things, but I think what happens is the greed sets in and they're like, well, what if we start monetizing this and this? And you do it so much that it just destroys the soul of the game. And then you get left with, what we have today. And then before you know it, it destroys the soul of the company where people are waiting for like oh, are we getting a new Diablo game? And it's like, nope, it's a phone game. It's just like, it just really rubs you the wrong way. And you're like, oh, well, maybe next year we'll get it. And then, next year they'll be like, here's another mobile thing. And then you just start losing faith. And so I guess it is like it's a hope that this type of thing and all recreating these old games does respark that, like, hey, maybe we should focus more on making these types of games instead of just like only thinking about money and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen people make the argument that at the end of the day, games companies are companies and they have obligations to investors. And, that's all fine and dandy. You can't blame them for making these decisions. But, I feel even from just like an objectively, financial standpoint, get gamers on your side. Like, get these old school gamers on your side. They'll give you money. Like, I remember when Nostalria shut down, Boogie2988 made this video, basically in response to the shutdown. And he was like, look, we're gamers. We'll give you money too. We have money too. And I feel like now more than ever, especially if a company came out and made something that gamers really wanted, I feel like people would be more inclined to support, these types of companies. So hopefully somebody does it. Hopefully it's Blizzard, just because of the connection we have with them and just our childhoods and stuff like that. But at this point, dude, I'd love to see any company make a solid MMO.
Yeah, and I think MMOs specifically are like so hard to run and to create and keep going because there's like so much that has to go into it as opposed to like some other games. Like for example, I know Ukulele was what, like, Banjo Kazooie. Everybody gave them money to make Ukulele, and I enjoyed Ukulele as somebody who's like one of my favorite games is Banjo Kazooie, but it didn't have that same kind of feel Banjo Kazooie did. But there was a part of me that just hoped it was going in the right direction, or that this showed companies and people like, hey, people still want to play like old school platformers. People still like these games. Don't be afraid to just take a shot with it. And I think that's what this kind of needs as well, is like they just need someone to just take that shot.
Exactly. And hopefully Classic is the spark that ignites it. And if it is, that's amazing. Worst case scenario, maybe we get TBC as well, or like maybe it's not quite big enough to cause this industry-wide surge, but it's big enough to justify TBC and maybe Wrath for the people interested. But something, man, something. There is a game actually that I'm very excited for. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's called Hightail.
I don't think I have.
So this game, you look at it and it kind of looks like a Minecraft, reskin, just based on the graphics and stuff like that. It's got the block aesthetic. But when you start digging into it, Rob Pardo, who was one of the original design geniuses at Blizzard with Vanilla WoW, and StarCraft and Diablo, he's fully endorsed it. He's backing the project both financially and verbally. Riot Games, League of Legends, is now heavily invested into Hightail. And I think what's so interesting about it is not so much the base game, which is essentially a Minecraft adventure RPG, but the idea that they're going to be releasing all of their development tools to the public. And I actually spoke to the Hightail project lead, and he was telling me that people will essentially be able to make their own kind of mini MMOs within Hightail with hundreds of people on a server, potentially thousands, depending on where they go with the development. But that's what excites me the most, seeing developers give their tools back to the community, the modding community, who in turn can create their own ideas of good MMOs. And for me, that's really where the future is. I see all these games coming out like Fortnite and even older games like Counter-Strike and the MOBA genre. All of these games came from mods and modders. And so to see that the MMO genre is starting to kind of dip its toes in that area with moddable experiences, that's very exciting to me personally.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Things like Dota, all the Warcraft 3 games. It's another reason I'm excited for Warcraft 3 Remastered, because I think we're going to get a lot more, Dota-style games. Not like, an actual Dota, but games that get born from just custom scenario editors. So
Absolutely. Dude, you and I, we got to play Impossible Bosses one time. It's a Warcraft 3 custom map. Dude, we got to do this one time, like, whenever you want, dude. It's this new map in Warcraft 3 custom games where it's as you would think. It's like literally nearly impossible bosses. Super, super hard. Plays kind of like Diablo. But, dude, it is amazing. And for me, it's like, man, seeing that in Warcraft Remastered and, what other games could come out, that's very, very exciting.
yeah, I'm really excited for Warcraft 3 Remastered. I'm down for that. It's I think I'm even gonna try to make some. I wanted to make like a custom type of thing with all my WoW machinima characters in it, like a little adventure to play through. I thought that'd be fun. So
Dude.
I think I'm excited.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm looking forward to playing it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Billy and the Go guy and all those guys.
Yep. I'm ready. I think it'll be fun. And then I don't know, yeah, I'm excited for old games. Is the biggest thing. But I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up on the future of gaming. And why don't we go over where people can find you?
Oh, absolutely. So if you want to find me, I hang out in the shadiest of places. But no, for real, youtube.com/tipsoutbaby. Just Google tips out on YouTube or something like that. I'm sure I'll come up at some point. And on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/tipsoutbaby. And on Twitter, twitter.com/tipsoutbaby. Basically, tipsoutbaby. Try it. You might find me there. But yeah, I appreciate it, Crendor. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll put all your links in the description, so it's even easier for the lazy people.
There you go.
But yeah, I think it was a good talk. I'm enjoying talking about Classic WoW as it gets closer. And if anyone wants even more Classic WoW discussion, I've got a fishing with Asmongold. We didn't really talk about Classic WoW, but it's Asmongold. We got fishing with S-Fand. I fished with him a few months back. I fished with Nixium. I fished with a lot of people actually. Like looking back, Boogie. I know you mentioned Boogie. John Stats. If you want to hear some more Classic WoW development, I got one of those. I fished with Brandon Sanderson, the fantasy author. I fished with a lot more people than I thought I'd ever fish with, so that's pretty neat.
A masturbator, dude. A masturbator.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, thanks again for joining me. It was a good discussion. And yeah, I'll see you around, and I'll hopefully have you back on, or we can play some games.
Sounds good, man. Anytime.
All right. Well, see you later.
Peace.